When we talk about obsession, addiction, or repeating painful patterns, it's easy to slip into shame. We start to ask, what's wrong with me? But the real question is softer and truer. What happened to me? Because most of what we call dysfunction begins as protection. The ways we disconnect, chase, cling, or numb, those were once brilliant survival strategies. They were the body's way of saying, I'm trying to keep you safe. Childhood trauma isn't only about what happened, it's also about what didn't. It's not just the loud moments of chaos or fear, but the quiet ones too. The times no one noticed your tears, your needs, your loneliness. Emotional neglect can look like growing up in a house where everyone was too busy, too stressed, or too hurt themselves to truly see you. You might have learned to stay small, to please, to perform, or to disappear. You might have become the caretaker, the achiever, the peacemaker, because that's what helped you survive. When love was unpredictable, your nervous system adapted. When safety wasn't consistent, you learned to read every room like a storm map. That sensitivity kept you alive. It made you resourceful, alert, and strong. But what once protected us can start to backfire. The same instinct that once said, pay attention, danger is near, might now whisper, don't trust peace, it won't last. The same drive that made you work for love might now make you chase people who cannot give it. So when we find ourselves stuck in painful patterns, it's not a sign of weakness. It's the echo of a nervous system that learned to survive. And this is where compassion begins. Not with blame or diagnosis, but with understanding. We are not broken. We are patterned. And every pattern was once an act of intelligence, a way our younger selves kept us safe in a world that felt too big. The work now isn't to judge those patterns, it's to gently update them, to let the body know the danger has passed, to create the safety that was missing. Because healing isn't about fixing who we are, it's about remembering who we were before we had to protect ourselves so hard. Maya always fell for the quiet ones, the ones who didn't say much, who seemed self-contained and mysterious. She told herself she liked calm men who didn't need constant reassurance, but after a few months, the familiar ache always returned. The long pauses between texts, the way she could pour her heart out and get a polite nod in return. She'd lie awake staring at the phone, rehearsing messages she'd never sent, feeling the sharp edge of being too much and not enough all at once. On the outside, Maya was steady. She had a good job, a small circle of friends, and the kind of smile people called warm. But inside, she carried a quiet desperation, an ache for a connection that felt almost shameful to admit. When he didn't call, she'd rationalize. He's busy, he's just not expressive. When he pulled away, she'd move closer, trying harder, saying less. And each time she promised herself she'd stop chasing, she found herself right back in the pull, caught between hope and humiliation. Remembered, though she rarely spoke of it, the way her father used to come home, tired and distant. How she'd sit on the couch beside him, waiting for him to notice her drawings, her questions, her presence. Sometimes he'd smile absently, pat her head and turn back to the news. Her mother, stretched thin by everything and everyone, would say, "Don't bother him, he's had a long day." So Maya learned early that love meant waiting quietly to be noticed, and that her needs were interruptions. Years later, when she sat across from a partner who never really met her eyes, something in her body recognized the scene. The tension felt familiar, almost comforting. The ache wasn't just emotional, it lived in her muscles, her breath, the way her shoulders curled slightly inward as if to take up less space. Her adult mind said, "I want intimacy," but her nervous system whispered, "This is what love feels like." Reaching, yearning. Almost one night, after another silent dinner, she drove home alone and cried. Not the loud kind of cry, but the slow, exhausted one that comes from knowing a pattern too well. She didn't hate him. She didn't even blame herself. She just felt the weight of a story that had been running her life, one that began long before she knew she was in it. From Mea's story, we see three truths about how early misattunement shapes love. First, when care is inconsistent, we learn to equate longing with love. The distance feels like proof of something real. Second, when our emotions weren't mirrored or met, we internalize the idea that our needs are too much, and so we shrink them to stay connected. And third, the body remembers patterns even when the mind wants something different. It seeks the familiar, even when the familiar hurts. But every pattern carries within it a doorway. The same sensitivity that once kept Maya scanning for love can, with awareness, become the sensitivity that helps her feel safety. Change begins the moment she notices the pull. Not to judge it, but to pause, breathe, and ask softly inside, what am I still reaching for? Edie was the kind of person everyone admired. Always early, always composed, always producing more than anyone asked for. His calendar was a wall of color-coded tasks. His phone buzzed with constant updates. He liked the noise, the rush of it, the way it filled the spaces that silence used to claim. When colleagues called him driven, he smiled. When they said, "You never stop," he took it as a compliment. At night, though, when the emails slowed and the city softened, Eli felt an ache rise from somewhere deep, something restless, wordless. He'd scroll until his eyes blurred, jump between apps, maybe pour a drink. The buzz dulled the sharpness inside him, the quiet pressure of loneliness that he couldn't explain. He didn't think of it as pain, just a heaviness that made stillness unbearable. He'd tried to rest once, a vacation meant to be a reset, but the empty days made him anxious. Without the hum of productivity, he didn't know who he was. The same drive that had built his success now ruled him, whispering, "Keep going or you'll fall apart." So he kept moving. Meetings, messages, endless tabs open. A life that looked full but felt hollow underneath. He remembered little of his childhood except the feeling that emotions were inconvenient. His parents praised performance, not presence. When he was sad, he was told to toughen up. When he was angry, he was told to calm down. Love felt conditional, something earned through good grades, clean smiles, perfect control. So he built his armor early. Competence as a shield, busyness as proof that he mattered. What looked like addiction wasn't about craving pleasure, it was about escaping pain. The scrolling, the drinking, the endless working weren't the problem, they were his solutions. His way of turning down the volume on a nervous system that never really felt safe. And beneath it all was a simple human story. A boy who learned that being still meant being exposed, and that the only way to stay loved was to stay useful. So when we look at people like Eli or at ourselves in those quiet, restless hours, the question isn't why the addiction. The question is why the pain? What tenderness, what old loneliness are we trying not to feel? What part of us is still waiting for permission to rest without fear? And as you listen now, maybe ask yourself, what do I reach for when silence starts to ache? And what might that ache be asking me to finally listen to? Imagine your body as a house with a very sensitive smoke alarm. It's designed to keep you safe. It doesn't wait to check if there's an actual fire, it just reacts. That's what implicit memory is like. It's the part of us that remembers without words. Even when our mind has moved on, our body keeps its own record. How tension felt, how voices rose, how rejection landed. It stores not the story, but the sensation. When we grow up in unpredictable or unsafe environments, that internal smoke alarm learns to go off at the faintest hint of smoke. Later in life, even when no danger is present, a tone of voice, a smell, or a look can trigger the same alarm. Our heart races, our stomach tightens, our mind spirals. We might not even know why. The mind says, I'm fine, but the body whispers, I remember. This isn't weakness. It's the body's loyalty. It kept us alert when we needed to be. It learned patterns to protect us. But sometimes that same protection becomes confusion. A partner's quietness might feel like rejection. A delayed text might feel like abandonment. A supervisor's neutral tone might flood us with shame or fear. None of it makes logical sense, and yet the body is trying to help, pulling from an old map that once kept us safe. Think of someone who freezes during conflict. Their partner says, talk to me, but their mind goes blank, words disappear. They later feel guilty, wondering, why do I shut down like that? But if we could look inside, we'd see that the body has hit the alarm. Too much intensity too fast, and the nervous system does what it was trained to do. It shuts everything down to survive. Once we understand that, compassion replaces judgment. The beauty is the smoke alarm can be retrained. The body can learn new safety. Each time we slow down, breathe, and notice what's happening without shame, we send a message to the alarm, you did your job, I'm safe now. Over time, the body begins to trust again. The heart steadies. The world softens. Healing isn't about erasing the past, it's about teaching the body that the fire is over and it can finally rest. Start small. Healing doesn't begin with dramatic change, it begins with noticing. One of the gentlest ways to start is with an awareness journal. For a week, simply write down when you feel tense, anxious, or shut down. Note what was happening, who you were with, and what your body felt like in that moment. You don't need to analyze or fix anything yet, just observe. This helps bring patterns from the shadows into the light, because what we can see, we can begin to soothe. When you notice a trigger, a sudden wave of irritation, fear, or numbness, pause and ask yourself a few compassionate questions. What might this feeling be protecting me from? What does this remind me of? What need might be hiding underneath this reaction? These questions aren't to find fault, but to bring curiosity where shame once lived. Over time, they help you shift from reacting to understanding. In those moments when your body tightens or your mind races, try a short somatic pause. Feel your feet on the ground. Let your breath move a little slower and deeper in through your nose, out through your mouth. Look around and name 3 things you can see right now. This anchors your nervous system in the present moment. It reminds your body that you are here, not back in the past. Choose one boundary to practice this week. It might be saying, I need a moment when you feel overwhelmed, or putting your phone down after work to protect your rest. Boundaries aren't walls. They're signals of self-respect. Each time you set one, you teach your body that your safety matters and reach toward one safe connection. A friend who listens without fixing, a support group where people speak openly, or a therapist trained in trauma. Healing happens in connection because the wounds we carry were formed in isolation. To be seen and met safely is how the body relearns trust. Each of these small acts, awareness, inquiry, grounding, boundary, connection, gives your nervous system a new experience of safety. Healing doesn't come from effort alone. It comes from gentle repetition, from reminding yourself again and again that you are no longer in danger and you don't have to face your pain alone. If your memories or emotions ever feel too heavy to hold, please reach out for professional support. A trained therapist can help you move through what once felt impossible at a pace that honors your safety and your story. Think of everything we've explored, the longing for distant love, the reach for numbing comfort. As roots growing through stone, they've twisted, adapted, survived in hard soil. Now, as awareness touches them, small cracks appear. And through those cracks, light begins to rise. This is how healing works, not by tearing the roots out, but by letting warmth find its way in. Each time you pause before reacting, breathe through a trigger, or choose rest over running, you're widening those cracks. Change is slow because safety comes first. The body only unfolds when it feels safe enough to try, so let tiny wins count. Each one is proof that the light is finding you, even here, even now. Take a breath. You've already begun something brave, turning toward what's been shaping you instead of running from it. This week, try one small experiment when the familiar pull of old pain rises. Whether it's the urge to chase, to numb, or to disappear, pause for just 10 seconds. Feel your feet, your breath, the ground beneath you. Whisper to yourself, I'm here now. That pause is not small. It's the space where the past begins to loosen its hold. Relief doesn't come from erasing who we've been, but from finally meeting ourselves with the gentleness we always needed. Healing asks for patience, not perfection.